Hi, I'm Dr. Angela Carswell, author of The Top Shelf Wife, and I'm sponsoring this YouTube podcast space in order to share information, insights from perspectives of being a wife and mom. And today, our first topic is going to be about before we go to counseling or therapy. And I know I'm so thankful that we do have professionals out there who offer therapy, especially to families and children. Those people carry a great weight on their heart, and I appreciate them so much. So, first of all, let me introduce myself and the experiences that I've had that I'm trying to lend to the community as a whole. First of all, as a wife, I've been married for 20 years in two marriages and with two wonderful men. And that sometimes will come into play in different conversations, not so much today. Also, I'm a mom of two, a 27, 27-year-old and a 24-year-old. And so I've been through all of the stages through getting them into the world. And so far, so good. There's bumps always, and we work through those even now as far as what they're doing and how they're doing. The 27-year-old is a director for a nonprofit, and the 24-year-old is making a way in the military as a career. I also have years of experience teaching over almost 2 decades. And so there's been thousands of students and hundreds of families that I've had the pleasure of working with children in different modalities, going through different traumas, understanding life as children do. So I hope to lend my expertise in that. I have a doctorate in education. And yeah, so that's kind of my background, all of that. And I'm also the author of A Top Shelf Wife. So a lot of what I am going to recommend or talk about is pulled through from the pages of that work as a resource. And that particular book is actually based on and draws from other excellent professionals in different areas um, of our community. So let's get into it. Before we go to counseling or therapy, and as a mom, you are in a position that you tend to carry the emotional weight of the family when things aren't going well, when the stressors kind of mount up. Emotionally, we are kind of the first line of defense in figuring out if is there something wrong, is there not something wrong, and let's devise a plan on how to approach it. Now, of course, men can carry that same responsibility, and many of them do. So, this is a video not just for women per se, but anybody really wanting to decide when is a good time. Um, Therapy is a wonderful resource. And I said that before. So, I don't want to discourage people from going, especially if you are in a dire strait when you have people faced with self harm or any of those things. So just listen and see how much of this resonates with you and your situation. Okay. First of all, you want to be in a position where you are anticipating upheaval and changes. And a lot of times, as parents are living lives, they're going to work, they're doing groceries, bills, the whole nine. We do have to sometimes, hopefully in the quiet times, really kind of think about what's coming next in order to prepare ourselves, our mindsets, and the children and our spouses, to be honest. So there are a few times that are pivotal for most students. And so I'll just kind of list those just so you can kind of mentally check in to see if you have any of these situations coming up. Okay. So, first of all, are age based changes. And these are things where they're transitioning in school, either from elementary to middle or from middle to high school. Body changes. These things that kind of creep over us because we're seeing the kids day in and day out. And sometimes it doesn't just click that, oh, we've got the onset of puberty, or we're having some attention issues. They're not keeping track of tasks. And so I'm having to kind of refresh and refresh and refresh, retell, remind. Those sometimes can indicate issues, either in processing or in efficacy or in confidence. So we want to kind of be mindful of body changes. And also, depending on their social and emotional foundation, they may have issues with acceptance in different periods of their lives. So we want to be kind of just looking out for age based changes. The next category is family changes, things like divorce, death, and possibly conflicts. And not just, what are we having for dinner? But if there's some deep rooted conflicts that have to do with communication, physical conflicts, or power dynamics in the family. So just kind of keep those types of things in mind as I'm going through. Okay. The second thing, outside of actually anticipating future changes, you want to say, okay, this change is coming up. How equipped am I? How equipped am I to address this? What do I know about it? Have I experienced it? What is the culture around said issue? And when I do my mental inventory, I really want to land on what it is that I am not equipped for, because that's the focus. What area do I, as a parent, need to grow in to be equipped for this particular situation? Okay. Number three, what is the benefit of responding as a parent to this situation? And again, I in no way am I discouraging anyone from seeking therapy and counseling, but I question, should that be the first line of defense? And so listen to these benefits and see which ones resonate with you as you decide when should you seek out counseling for your child. First of all, as you look for resources about the topic, you're going to end up gaining some background knowledge in that area, in that subject. What are the professional practices that are highly recommended in this time? And what are the stages of the issue? So, those are the things that, as you decide to kind of before therapy, you make that investment to do some reading, to actually gain your own background knowledge of what should I be expecting. Okay. Secondly, if you decide to approach the situation that your family is about to embark on, it's going to deepen the bonds of care, trust, accountability, and communication in the family. Even though you have a relationship of parent child, these types of things are going to be strengthened for a lifetime. Okay, you're deepening those bonds of how to communicate. How do I approach problems? How do I approach conflicts? What do I do when I'm uncomfortable? All of those bonds are going to be strengthened through this issue, and really all the issues that you face as parents with your children. Thirdly, as a parent, you get to model efficacy. You get to model problem resolution with them. You get to model communication and being present with yourself and with your child through the issue. For example, I had a friend of mine call me, and she had been married for, let's say, 10 years, and they were facing a divorce at the time. And so, from time to time, I'd call and check on her and just be a listening ear. And so she mentioned to me that she knew that the divorce would probably have some impact with her fifth grader. And so she said, I'm just going to go ahead and sign him up for therapy. And I said, hold on. What are you seeing that you're noticing as a change with your fifth grader? And she said, no, he's still communicating. He's still doing well in school. He's still active in his sports. I'm not noticing any more conflicts with his sister. Um, and so he's not being kind of resentful or lashing out at me. And so I said, okay, so you don't have really an imminent danger of any type of problem. You're just knowing that it's coming, and that's making you feel a little anxious. So she said, yeah, that's kind of what it is. I know it's coming, and I know I have to respond. So I want to go ahead and set it up. And so I cautioned her to wait just a little while to consider actually modeling and being kind of in charge of this transition before seeking help. And so when we do that as a parent, we grow in our own efficacy to deal with um, changes. We also model problem resolution. We model giving space for someone, so that we don't just automatically rush them into therapy and start delving into things and they may have a propensity to kind of manufacture certain feelings because they're in that space. So we want to actually see some sort of problem first. If you know it's something that may potentially cause a problem. Also, the communication, modeling that communication, that checking in, that, how do you feel about this? Let's talk about it. Do you have anything? Do you have any questions? Um, how can I, how can we come together as a family right now? Just asking these open ended questions and seeing what your fifth grader, what your 11th grader, whomever, what they have to say about the situation. So you can really internalize and really mull over what they're feeling and get a foundation for where they are with the perceived problem that you see. Okay. It also shows a great deal of presence that, I'm not jumping the gun. I am leaving space for you to mentally and emotionally come to terms with whatever the issue may be. So that's number 3, as far as a benefit of you as a parent, kind of taking the reins yourself in figuring out what we can do as a family to resolve or at least deal with issues before we seek outside counseling. Because what happens when you actually jump the gun and automatically put in, sign up for, schedule counseling, is you almost turn over those reins to that counselor. Okay. And you want to keep them as much as you can because there's some growth in it for you as a parent. There's some growth in it for the family unit to come together before we just automatically push it off, even in love, push it off to a third party. Okay. The fourth benefit is building confidence for the future. Understanding that as a fifth grader, for as far as the example's sake, things are going to continue to come up. And you're going to continue to have a choice of, do I deal with it? How do I grow? How do I contribute to the solution before I seek outside counseling? And outside counseling is wonderful and great. So I don't want to discourage you from doing that. But also, there's some accountability and some responsibility and some growth that can happen before that. Okay. Um, so number 4 was build confidence for the future. Number 5 is you're better equipped to communicate the areas of assistance to a therapist. After you delve into things, gaining background knowledge, having conversations, deepening the bonds of conversation between parent and child, modeling some maybe first tier, second tier solutions, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't work. Once you've done that, now it's time for you to say, okay, these are the areas as a family we haven't been able to figure out. These are the tools that we need. These are the areas that we haven't been able to make headway in. And these are the residual effects that are negative that are impacting my child. Now, armed with that, I can go to a therapist and actually say, okay, this is what I've um, learned in the area. Check and see if that's correct. These are the things that I've done or we've done as a family in this area. These are the things that have worked or not worked as results. And now this is the assistance that I need. You have clear goals, clear objectives of what you think. And of course, a good therapist is going to weigh in on each of those parts as they see fit. And you want to, of course, be open to hearing what they have to say. Okay? So those are the benefits of you responding as a parent um, yourself and building efficacy before seeking out third party help through a therapist. Some of the skills that you might want to also think about is the how of how am I going to approach this? And as I mentioned before, I've written a book called The Top Shelf Wife. And in The Top Shelf Wife, it has 5 different areas of support and nurturing that women in particular can bring to the table for their families. And in that particular book, what I want to do now is kind of just gloss over, um, maybe recommend, also bring to light some of the different skills that you can use that may be helpful in these sorts of situations. And I'll go from category, it's in, I think, 3 different categories that I just want to quickly talk about. First of all, in Nurture the Soul, this is the actual copy of the book. It's on Audible and Amazon as a reference and a resource. So in Nurture the Soul, one of the components of that is words of assurance. And as you do that for yourself as a parent, I am equipped to deal with this up until a certain point. I do provide a loving environment for my children. I am a great mom, a great parent. When you give words of assurance to yourself, you're really it's a lot easier to give them to others. And if you're facing a child with some sort of upcoming chaos or confusion, you do want to give words of assurance that we're going to get through this together. Okay? Secondly, respect for God or a higher power. There is a level of faith that you're going to have, in my opinion, in order to calmly kind of address these situations, understanding that God is not going to put any more on you than what you can bear. And you want to approach it with, he has a solution for me. It's in me, until you get to a level that, tier number 3 or tier number 4, that I need to seek some help. Also within nurture the soul, feminine voice. A lot of times, because life be life, and you don't always approach situations with a calm and nurturing tone. And so understanding that in situations, the flip reaction isn't always the best. Taking some time, actually softening your spirit before you approach situations, allows you to approach things in a when I say feminine voice, I mean like a siren. Okay, like a siren. One, a siren, emergency, ambulance, a siren is going to have a warning component. Okay, so we do want to be wise in our warnings. We also, like a siren of the old Greek mythology, we also want to have a voice that is easy to listen to. It's not abrasive, it's not argumentative, it's not defensive. It's the opposite. It's inviting. It's kind of a sing-song type voice sometimes. It draws people in, that feminine voice. Okay, so that is the last one. The last kind of skill set in the Top Shelf Wife book that comes into play as you're beginning to figure out, like, do I have the skills, and what skills do I have to lend to getting my child to a certain point before we go to therapy. The next section is support a husband in the book. And when you have an impending situation in your family that you know is going to cause some sorts of reactions, you want to be an active listener, asking open-ended questions, not asking leading questions like, don't you feel upset that we're getting a divorce? That's leading the witness. You can't do that, okay? You kind of want to ask, do you have any feelings about what might change or what might stay the same? And put a framework where they can mentally say what's going to stay the same and what may change. And you can kind of see the difference between those things and maybe some areas that you'll need to address. So being an active listener, being quiet, not projecting that, oh, things are going to be hard. No, 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 no. Things are going to be an adventure. And we're going to have to kind of bring ourselves together to figure out how we're going to get through this and love each other and get to the other side. Also within that category is being a lifelong learner and reader. And in one of the points before, gaining background knowledge about the situation that you guys are facing as a family, you want to do some reading. I don't care if that's literal reading or an audible book, in being intentional about the podcast that you listen to, being intentional about how you seek out and where you seek out information, that it's positive, that it's objective, and that it sets a tone that you want for your family. The third support category is support of family. Sometimes, depending on the particular circumstance, you may find that healthy eating, changing your eating patterns, has a impact on the mental clarity. Okay, and so don't count that out, especially when you're dealing with developing minds and developing bodies. That's an area that a lot of times we don't want to just get into that. Oh, how do I need to eat differently? Because it's hard and it takes a disciplined commitment as a parent. It takes discipline in order to kind of not necessarily control, but give choices that are going to set our children on a healthier pathway mentally and physically. And so just keep that in the back of your mind as you're investigating. Also in the supportive family category is assertive nurturing. And that's making sure that you kind of keep yourself in a mind frame of we can do this. I'm going to be involved and we can do it. We're going to get to the other side. I'm going to be here. And I want to impact the outcomes. I want to impact positively the outcomes that my family is going to have. The other one, last one within this section of supportive family, is solutions oriented. Um, that's getting in the mindset of yes, I'm going to find some solutions. There's going to be some things that we want to try and see how we can move the needle ourselves before we seek out a therapist or family counselor. Okay, solutions oriented. Get the kids involved. Get your spouse involved. Get your grandma, your mama involved. Solutions oriented doesn't have to be on your shoulders all the time. Sometimes it's actually delegating some things that maybe you have a aunt or uncle that can come by and do some things, or maybe you have a friend who can have some conversations and kind of put some feelers out there that may also help. Okay, so each of those categories that I talked about is in this book, The Top Shelf Wife. And I'll be bringing some more situations that we can kind of look at from a support and nurturing perspective in order to impact our families and communities in a positive way. If you have questions or topics that you want to discuss, feel free to drop them in the comments. And you can also find me on socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, obviously, for at familypathways.books for any topics or questions that you like for me to address and see what happens. Thank you for listening, and please share, subscribe, and come back again. Set your notifications to do that.